end up in my coffin.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Red Top Report. I'm your host, Joe Enders, and I got a really special guest today. I got the founder of the Martyrs Walk and the host of his own show, The Obligation Show. We're talking about Jason Murphy. Welcome to Red Top, Jason. Great to have you.
Hey, Joe. So glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we get into the real nitty-gritty of all these subjects, there's something very important to this show, very important to Ronan, actually, that we need to really bring up and let everybody know about. You need to give us your money!
Start building your long-term wealth by investing in long-term money makers.
And you can give us your money by going to buymeacoffee.com. That's right. Go to buymeacoffee.com. Link is in the description. You can give us a single donation, or you could do a monthly Joe for Joe donation for only $5 a month. Okay, Jason, I hear that you're really trying to cultivate some Catholic masculinity out there. Now, where are you guys located? First question.
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
All right, so you guys are in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, I've been hearing about this Martyrs Walk. I've been hearing a lot of good things about it, specifically from our friend Daniel Vu over at Tradcat Men on Instagram. He's been heavily promoting this thing. He thinks it's really good for young Catholic men. Can you just give us a description of what this thing is and why it's so important?
Yeah, so this is something I never thought I'd be working on. I've been involved with men's ministries for many years, starting really, at the bottom rung of the Knights of Columbus, working up, through all the different officer positions, and really wanted to, get my hands on men and just formation and get guys to really get engaged with their faith. Through that work that, with the Knights of Columbus, we started the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas in 2010. And that was a great asset to us here in the Diocese of Charlotte, and it grew, but it flattened out, and it just wouldn't allow us to get our claws deep inside the guys to get them really, really active. It became like a checklist, once a year checklist. Go hit the Knights of Columbus once a month meeting and hit the men's conference once a year. And there's been just this nagging that I felt God had laid on me for a long time to get in, to continue to lead, to help lead men. And so the Martyrs Walk, it's the culmination of a lot of prayer and even a lot of little miracles here and there. But it is essentially a virtual martyrdom. Our goal is to take a man, take him out of his comfort, out of his complacency, where we tend to find ourselves. Myself included, that after a while, after so many years of a job, of family, you start to feel like, well, I've got it now and I've plateaued. And, if we're not moving forward, we're moving backwards. And so this idea of forming this men's intense boot camp, which best described as a military boot camp meets St. Ignatius of Loyola and an Ignatian retreat, primarily focusing on the four last things: death, judgment, heaven, and hell. And we're going to put men through pretty much all of those things. And it's a lot. We could probably talk for several hours on everything, but that's the meat of it. The meat is taking a man out of his comfort zone, pushing him to more, because he, myself included, we are capable of so much more. And this world wants to beat everything manly and everything masculine out of us. And we, unfortunately, are going with that flow.
Well, I think you're offering something to young men. I actually just recently wrote a commentary on that. Ronan, you can throw that up there for everybody to go and watch. Or to go and see. It was about suffering well. And I think one of the things that this boot camp really does, and you can throw up some footage too, of exactly what's going on here, is you're pushing men to their limits. You're teaching them to overcome. In the piece that I wrote, it's called "The Unconditional Duty of a Christian Man Suffer Well." The main idea was that you first need to humble yourself before Christ, before God. And then after that, you need to be able to develop fortitude to overcome whatever suffering God puts in front of you. And then after that, you need to develop a sense of self-mastery so the roadblocks don't interfere with you overcoming suffering as you just go through your life and trudge through your life. So right. I think that the way that you're structuring this as being, spiritual as well as physical training, it really does remind me of the Knights Templar. a lot.
Yes.
You know, their vocation was actually, you know, a training in warfare. It was actually training in fighting. There was physical training involved. There was eating healthy to build muscle involved. That was the part of the vocation, and obviously celibacy because they were religious and all those other things. But I don't see a lot of this in the Catholic world right now. It seems to me that like Catholic men right now, they're kind of a joke. They're wimpy, they're skinny, they don't work out, they're not athletic. They kind of just retreat into their books and into their prayers, and you know, they talk about Spanish phalangism more than, you know, how to defeat the evil global elites in our culture. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, if indeed, you know, the very few that actually are reading and actually are praying, because the vast majority aren't doing anything.
Sure.
And it's quite unfortunate. But you know, we could point the finger at our world, but unfortunately, we can also point our finger at our church, who has feminized, you know, everything from the top down, and men have checked out. You know, and you can look at all the examples. You can look at the examples of bringing in. You know, there's going to be people, I'm sure, maybe not your listeners won't be offended, but, you know, you bring in altar girls, the boys are fleeing, they're gone.
Yep.
You know, you bring in the feminized music and you kick out the Gregorian chant, and you bring up the female lectors and extraordinary ministers or whatever. The men are checked out. They're disengaged. They want manliness. You know, we could go into a whole lot of rabbit holes about the liturgy and the traditional Latin Mass and how it exudes manliness, and the New Order, unfortunately, how it is the exact opposite. Unfortunately, in most cases,
definitely as it's expressed, you know, yeah. Just there's all the changes that they made to the liturgy that had really nothing to do with Vatican II have been just been such a disappointment. And yes, liturgical abuse, and we're not afraid to say that on Red Top Report,
stacked
guys.
On top of each other, just stacked upon stacked, and now they're the norm. And most priests will go along with it and say, "Well, that's just what's allowed." No, it's the abuse has become the norm, exactly. And it's a joke.
And that's the thing, you know. There's a masculine element that's missing, and that's why when you look at the churches, they're filled with old ladies. They're not filled with young men. They're not filled with exuberant, zealous Catholic men. And this goes into something that I feel like the church really has lost. It's called I at least this is what I call it. There's no more battle theology. Where's the battle theology? Where's this idea that we are in a lifelong struggle against the forces of evil? You know what I mean? We need to defeat
militant. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We're engaged in a war. We need to be effective soldiers spiritually, physically, and mentally and emotionally, all at the same time. There's no cultivation.
The Templars. Sorry, yeah. You know, you mentioned the Templars, and part of that is you know, their rule was to have a weapon, and when you weren't able to have a weapon, yourself is supposed to be properly trained and prepared to be the weapon. And that's a joke these days. You know, men are so fat and out of shape and not ready for anything. You know, but speaking of the Templars, that is actually part of the walk, because we don't want to leave guys. We don't want them checking in for one event, you know, a 2.5 day event, and then going back, and they're going to be, you know, I made the analogy the other day. It's going to be like, you know, jumping out of an airplane, and you're going to be all excited and have all adrenaline. You're going to, you know, pull the chute, but you know, it's eventually you're going to hit the ground. And if you're not supported and you don't have, you know, stay in touch with the men who they are with you, and you don't have a secondary plan, like, what are you going to do now? Okay. So you went, so now what? So we actually have partnered with Queen of Martyrs Templars, and that is a relatively new apostolate. And they have established a very fine rule that is probably the best of the Knights Templars and Third Order Dominicans. And it's very, you know, it's very strict, and it can be overwhelming if you look at it, but we look at it as a roadmap. If you don't have a roadmap, you're definitely going to get lost. But when you have a roadmap, you can easily track back to where you took off. And so that rule is very important. And that is our continued support, continuing education, you would say. You know, there's other non-Catholic organizations that are doing somewhat similar. Of course, they don't have the beauties of the Catholic faith and tradition and the saints and the sacraments involved. But their continued plan usually revolves around the prosperity gospel. So they want to get you involved with these business groups and networking and all this, that, and the other, and all that's fine and good in its own way. But if we're seeking a higher way and the better way, the Catholic way, the pinnacle of man, which is the Catholic man. We want to form them, so that they can live out these principles and the ideals, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So that's where the rule of the Templars do come in with us.
Now, how often do you plan on doing these Martyrs Walks? Do you plan on making this like a regular thing? When can people go to the upcoming one?
Yeah, so the next one is August 24th to the 26th. We had our primer, our beta version, May 3rd to the 5th, where I brought guys, including Daniel Voob out from California. We've got Rick Barrett, he was the armed Catholic out of Texas, and several other guys. We flew in from New York and, like I said, California, Texas, and then we have a couple of local guys. They went through. I ran them through the program so that they would be our instructors. And our goal, as ambitious as it sounds, and I've got a lot of negative feedback, is once a month. I
love that.
The non-Catholics are doing it once a month. Why can't the Catholics do it once a month? We are a fraction of the expense, and we're doing this basically at a cost basis to get as many men as possible. I've been in residential development for almost 20 years, and I'm just done. I'm ready to get out. I want something with purpose. I am ready to commit everything that I've built up, the time and the talent and the treasure that God has afforded me over those years, to really focus on this, because I really want to make a difference with men. And our net profit, our bottom line is men. It's not a number. So very excited. So once a month is our goal.
I think that's first off, a noble and attainable goal for you guys to reach. And from my perspective, like I really do support this, because, I played football for 11 years. Like I was taught just by doing these sorts of things in my life, and having my father being, a strong Catholic man, to cultivate a lot of these values in me. A lot of men today don't have that, and then now football is being sanitized. It's not as harsh. It's not as hard on the body as it used to be, because they're coming up with rule after rule after rule on how you can, hit somebody or do anything. The whole point of football was, overcome this obstacle that's in front of you and get to the end zone. That's the entire point of the game. Or stop the people trying to get to the end zone. You're engaged in that battle. It very much mirrors the spiritual life. And I feel like that what you're offering men is like that football game. Even if it's just, once a month, even if it's just once a year, the person just goes to it the first time, for them to be able to understand that there's a hurdle in front of them, and that they can hop over it, or they can bust through it with the muscles that they've worked hard to build.
Amen.
They can start thinking about that in a more spiritual way. Because I think a lot of more of those traditional Catholic men, they're not as interested in that aspect of it, the physical aspects of the things, the earthly aspects. And I think that's quite a shame, because as we know, grace builds upon nature.
That's right.
And so if you can't in your mind conquer nature, how do you plan to conquer evil in your spiritual life? So your Martyrs Walk, it kind of combines both of those things very nicely. So I mean, I would encourage anybody watching this episode to go and really, really consider doing this Martyrs Walk. Like you said it's in August. August, what was the date again?
August 24th to the 26th.
August 24th to the 26th, guys. This is exactly the type of thing that you need to start really trudging down the path to a Catholic masculine life. Now, there's one more question I kind of want to ask you before we go out of here. What do you think about a lot of these men being in the situation that they're in because of a lack of a masculine father figure in their lives? I mean, we can think about the Homer Simpson, a dad portrayed on TV, and now we can, they portray the single mother where there's no dad at all or anything like that. Do you think that there's a war on dads? And do you think that the Martyrs Walk can help men become better fathers, or fathers, period?
Absolutely. There's absolute war on man, because the ultimate goal is war on the domestic church, and it's a full frontal attack. And if you're engaged in your faith, you're going to feel it every day. And as a father of 6, I feel it every single day. And if I'm not engaged and if I'm not paying attention, I am getting hit, and I'm not I'm not reacting the way I should be. So you've got to be engaged. If you're not moving forward, you're definitely moving backwards. And this is not just for married men. It's not just for fathers. It's not just for single guys. I mean, whatever your state in life, you are the head of your domestic church. If you're a single guy, your domestic church is your family, whatever family you have around you, your friends, the example you set, your people at work, the people at church. That's your domestic church. And that's under full attack. So we go from, age 18 to age 60. And if someone calls and begs to, wants to come and do it and they're over 60, we'll have to talk to them and see, and maybe taper it down. But we'll certainly bring anyone and everyone. Any man is going to benefit from this. And that's a fact.
All right. So Jason, where can we find you? And not just the Martyrs Walk, but where can we find you as well? Because I think a lot of men need that message that you're spreading. And I feel like I've watched some of your show before, and I feel like you do give Catholic men a bit more of a voice. And I think that you're someone that they could definitely learn a lot from.
Yeah. So for the Martyrs Walk, go to www.themartyrswalk.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook at the Martyrs Walk. And then, of course, my show, The Obligation, it's www.theobligationshow.com and at The Obligation Show on Instagram as well. But yeah, you can find us there, and a lot of cross promoting between the two. And I want to make sure you and Ronan know we have a spot reserved for you August 24th. If you two guys get to Charlotte, you've got it. You've got your ticket punched already. We'd love to see you there. And a lot of guys are going to challenge you now that I've put it out there. So we'd love to have you.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But we'll see if we can do that.
All right.
I want to do it. You want to do it?
Bro, I'm down. I'm game.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, well, you know what? Thank you so much for coming on, Jason. Before you go, one line, if you could tell one sentence that you could tell every Catholic man in the world right now, what would you tell him?
Die to sin, die to self, live for God. The Martyrs Walk motto.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks so much for coming on, Jason. Go check out The Obligation Show, guys. And more importantly, you guys need to follow us on Twitter and you need to follow us on Instagram. Oh, and by the way, you need to subscribe to the channel and click that notifications bell so you always know when we're dropping new content. And with that said, guys, go to the Martyrs Walk and God bless you.